Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a pleasant day. This is Jofali Jamalol, a BS Public Administration student, and today we will be talking about the introduction to Public Administration Summary and Analysis discussion. So in this video, there are 5 different modules that we will be talking about. Namely, we have the introduction to the field of public administration, evolution to the field of public administration, administrative theories, functional areas in public administration. Fifth, we have the development theories, models, meanings of development, indicators, assumptions, and strategies. And lastly, we have the challenges to political and economic development in the Philippines. So in Module 1, named as the Introduction to the Field of Public Administration. So this question is very crucial nowadays. Why do you really have to study public administration? Its importance. Okay, ceaseless diligence to required to avoid political usurpation, messes and discretionary authorities, and maladministration. Public administration ignorance leave the citizen dependent on official dom. More people are now finding jobs in the public sector, and they are probably obliged to learn more about their working environment. Academic teaching highlights the importance of passing and acquired knowledge of the discipline. Vocationally, school teaches basic organization methods and aims to create better practitioners. Teaching is intended to expand analytical horizon to challenge personal attitudes. Okay? To summarize, here are 8 different reasons why public administration is important at the end of the day. Firstly, to stress out the ability to speak and write effectively, clearly, precisely, and concisely. To develop intellectual research and practical tools, to acquaint the student with the literature of the field, which is the public administration, to promote an awareness and importance of public administration, its importance, traditions, practices, and embodied values and trends, to link the discipline with other disciplines, show the connections between them, and compare and contrast their different approaches, to emphasize realism, the pragmatic empirical foundation of this subject matter, and the dynamic nature of public administration, to educate the intelligent citizenship, to promote increased participation in public affairs, to create a better understanding to the national culture and dominant social values, and to develop future public leaders. And lastly, to prepare students for public employment by encouragement and inspiration, guidance in the values of administrative culture, acculturation, stimulation, and acquaintance with public administration. So what is the meaning of public administration to begin with? There are 6 points why public administration, there are 6 points on what is really public administration to begin with. Firstly, it refers to the activities of the execution branches of the national, states, and local government units. It is a composite of laws, regulations, practices, codes, and customs to the execution of public policy. It is a cooperative group effort in public settings. It covers all the 3 branches, which are the executive, legislative, and judiciary, and their relationship. It has an important role in formulating the public policies, thus part of the political process. It is closely associated with numerous private groups and individuals in providing services to the community. So now, let's move on to the nature, border, perspectives, goals, and connotation of public administration. Firstly, we have the nature of public administrations. There are 4 nature of public administration. Number 1, we have the public administration is eclectic and multidisciplinary. Second, the practice of public administration is pervasive and inescapable. Third, the public administration is culture bound and inevitably ethnocentric. Fourth, which is the last, we have the public administration is dynamic and never static. Okay, so it is really fair. We also have this border perspective of public administration, and it is divided into 2 subcategories. First, we have from a very broad perspective, public administration may be seen to refer not only the activities associated with the implementation of the policies and programs of the government, but also about the process and content of those policies initiatives. Secondly, we have in an even border perspective. Okay, so some kind of light. Public administration can apply to cooperative human operations, whether within the context of public bureaucracies and private sectors of the NGO, which is the national government authorities, in the provide of services to the communities. C, we have the goals of public administrations. Pursuing public goods and services. Those are the main goals, of course. Second, we have ensuring efficiency and effectiveness delivery of public services. Third, we have the improving of quality of life. Fourth, we have promoting social justice and equality, transparency, and accountability. And lastly, we have the accessibility along the way in the business of public service. So let's now move on to the connotations, scope, and concern of public administration. It is divided with four main points. First, management of the government organization. Second, provision of public goods and services. Third, we have the coordination of individual and group effort to carry out and give effects public policies for the fulfillment of common objectives. And lastly, we have the governance of the public interests. And we have these important notes, of course. The amalgamation of the goals and connotation of public administration is corollary to the content of public administration. Moving on to the administration as an art and science. Public administration as an area of practice, vocation, career, or specialty. Art in public administration as a field of study and discipline. Science. There are two approaches of this to describe public administration as an art and an area of study. Its meaning has changed in both ways over time. Public administration as an art or as a field of practice. Generally, in practice, public administration refers to any cooperative and collaborative group effort, whether within or outside government institutions. It may be worth distinguishing between governance and administration, according to Carneo, 1997. Governance is leading to the achievement of certain societal objective, while administration is achieving societal objectives. Okay, we have this public administration as a science or a field of study. The definition of public administration as a discipline has evolved over time in the light of its evolution. The public administration should not be called public administration only, nor public administration. This notion means true at present and long before the systematic analysis of public policies, as stated in Hammurabi, Confucianism and Pericles' funeral oration. In this context, teaching of public administration must give primary attention not only in the acquisition and delivery of knowledge on the discipline, but more on the development of the desired ethical and moral behavior expected in the public servant. So that is all for the administration as an art and science. Moving on to the letter E, we have the peculiarities and peculiar characteristic of public administration. We have 7 public administration peculiarities. Firstly, it is inviolable. Okay. Second, it can compel obedience. Third, it has priorities in carrying out communal activities. Fourth, it provides wide range in public services and carrying out communal activities. Fifth, it is directly responsible to political leadership. The political nature of public administration and the kind of communal activities involved make judgment and performance extraordinarily difficult. And lastly, we have the citizen expect more public administration than other kind of administration. Now moving on to the approaches to the public administration. There really are three different approaches in dealing with the basic question of what public administration is. Traditionally, these approaches are labeled and managerial, political, and legal, and are often overlapping. Their main power was to pull public government in three different directions. These methods are intended to follow the template of the division of power of the state defined by the Constitution. Thus, each of these approaches has its own philosophical tradition, stresses various ideals, encourages different forms and hierarchical system, and considered public people in a distinct way. The managerial approaches to public administration. It is divided with four different subjectives, four different sublevels. Firstly, we have the origin, tradition. Second, values. And third, we have the organizational structure. And thus, we have the view of individual. So, talking about the origin and traditions of the managerial approach to public administration, civil service reforms promote this approach as a means of organizing public services. Wilson himself considered public administration as a field of business as well as managerial endeavor. This approach was very influential in 1930s. It was emphasized that the business part of government should be carried out in sound business-like manner. We have, of course, the value of managerial approach to public administration. Public service reforms have encouraged with this approach as a way of coordinating and civil service. Wilson himself found public policies to be private market. We also have this organizational structure of managerial approach to public administration. The management approach to public administration focuses on an organization focused on the ideal form of bureaucracy of Max Weber. It underlines the value of technical specialization, merit-based and political imperial personal expertise for the achievement of productivity and activeness. And lastly, you have the view of the individual to of the managerial approach to public administration. This approach appears to foster an impersonal view of people, whether an entity may be an employee or a customer or a victim of public agency. Excuse me. Now we have the legal approach to public administration, which is of course explained with these forms, with these four different forms. You have the objective, origin, administrative laws, judicialization of public administration, and constitutional law. So for the origin and traditions of legal approach to public administration, the legal approach to public administration has historically been eclipsed by managerial approach. However, it has its own rich tradition and has emerged as a fully fledged vehicle way for defining public administration. It has three interrelated sources, which are the administrative law, movement towards the judicialization of public administration, and the constitutional law. Administrative law, on the other hand, administrative law determines and or describes the position and liabilities of states official, including official procedures to be adopted in the law relating the administration, to administration. Okay, moving on to the judicialization of public administration. Public official or administrators must exercise their direction and discretion. It could become a civil matter. And lastly, we have the constitutional law, the legality of public political actions, and the action of the government are regulated by the role of public administration. It is concerned including the legal authorities of the government, abuse of power and fundamental rights of individual, and etc. To sum up, the traditional separation of legislative, executive, and judicial functions are: the primary task of legislative branch is to make policy. That is very clear. The primary task of the executive branch is the execution or implementation of the policy. So, that's it. Thirdly, we have the primary task of the judicial branch is the interpretation of the law. If it's really applicable, if it's really sustainable, or if it's really effective and essential at the end of the day. The managerial approach to public administration refers to the executive position with the government, which prioritize the administration and coordination of public bodies. Let's now move on to the module 2, which is the evolution of the field of public administration. In order to clarify the meaning of the meaning of Philippine public administration, it might be useful to retrace the history and development of broad discipline. The discipline of public administration can be divided into two primary phases: the traditional and classical period, and the new phase. So now in this slide we have this table. You can see the phases of evolution of public administration. Okay, phase 1, we have the traditional or classical public administration in the year of 1800s to 1950s, and the modern public administration from 1950s to the present. This paper tries to trace the roots of Philippine public administration. It shall dwell in American theories and principles which influenced the direction and development of formal duties and the field of public administration in the Philippines. It will be recalled that public administration as academical field of study formally began with the establishment by American of the institution of public administration. Okay, so in 1900s to 1950s, Woodrow Wilson in 1987 classical essay, The Study of Public Administration, was written at the height of progressive movement in the U.S. or the United States. It was in that essay that there was a serious claim that public administration should be a self-conscious professional field. Wilson suggested the distinction between politics and administration. Example, administration should have a politics-free distinction. It may be argued that through that, as far as the Philippine experience is concerned, the dichotomy is artificial, and that in practice, power and partisan politics have had a disproportionate influence upon the working of public administration in the Philippines. The first text in field of public administration was written by Leonard D. White in 1926, and it is one of the most influential texts in public administration to date. So let us now move to the modern public administration. The profession of public administration has been described as one that continues to identify crises. The crises have evolved around the imperative to establish a public administration rooted in the growth ambition of the Philippines. Yeah. So the modern public administration is divided into three: the development administration in 1950s, the new public administrative management, and reinventing government, and third, we have the public administration as a governance in 1990s into 2000. Okay, the development administration in 1950s to 1960s. Development administration, or DA, as a field of study emerged in 1950s and 1960s, with the third world countries as the focal point. These developing countries were in urgent need to implement fundamental reforms in the political administrative machineries. Khator argued that development administration, or the DA, was built upon several critical assumptions. That development needs are the most important needs of development of developing countries. Development can be administrated, and developmental knows how are transferable. The political, social, and cultural context of development can easily alter. The new public management and reinventing government has best NPM practice can be seen in New Zealand administrative reforms. Firstly, we have the Catholic government. Second, community-owned government or empowering rather than serving. Third, we have the competitive management or the injecting competition into service um, delivery. Fourth, the mission-driven government. Fifth, result-oriented government. Sixth, we have the customer-driven government. Seven, enterprising government. Eight, um, eighth, we have this anticipatory government. Ninth is we have the decentralized government. Re-engineering offers an approach for improving performance, effectiveness, and efficiency of organizations. The tenets of re-engineering include the following. Re-engineering is a fundamental rethinking and radical redesigning the business process. PA, or the Public Administration as a Governance in 1990s to 2000. The word governance suddenly has become something of a mantra in recent years, uttered by donors, reforms, and pundits alike. UNDP describes it as the exercise of political economic and administrative authorities to manage the nation's affairs. The quest of growth and development, on the other hand, the environment movement, the globalization, the consolidating peace are some of the factors that pushes the governance. So moving on to the module 3, the administrative theory. So in this module, we will be talking about the three main theories. First, the classical bureaucratic theory. The second, the human relations theories. And fourth, we have the modern organization theories. Firstly, we have the classical bureaucratic theory. The classical bureaucratic theories continue to dominate in teaching and practice the public administration in most countries claiming to be democratic, including the Philippines. It views organizations as a social system in which powers and authorities flow from the top downward through a hierarchy. The three dominant theories that belong to these categories are the scientific management theories, the principles of public administrations, and bureaucratic model. Firstly, we have the scientific management theory in 1856 to 1950. The scientific management theory was the first theory in classical managerial perspective. It concentrates on executing routine and repetitive activities through time and motion analysis. Frederick Tyler conducted an in-depth investigation into organization, administration, and job practices. He once found that one best way to do a job using the system of science management. The theoretical formulation sought by the scientific management theory can be stated in conceptual model from such as the most despite in figure 1 below, which we have this description of task, the selection of the worker, and lastly we have the productivity. We also have this principle of administration. The other branch of classical bureaucratic theory is the principle of administration, which Simon refers to as departmentalism. It grew up. It grew out of the needs to find guidelines for managing complex organizations such as factories. Henry Fayol, a mining industrial engineer at the time, is considered the founder of classical management school. So this principle of administration is subdivided into 14 subcategories. Firstly, we have this division of labor. Second, we have this authority, discipline, unity of command, unity of direction, subordination of individual interest to the common good. We also have this remuneration. Eighth, we have the centralization, the hierarchy, order, equity, stability of staff, of course, the initiative and spirit, the corpse. So we are now at the human relation theories. Organizations are regarded by the public relations schools of thoughts as a collective dealing with the quality of education or quality of life of individual workers. It arises to clarify the certain dysfunctions and bureaucracies in reaction to certain inadequacies of classical theories. The primary aim of humanists was the creation of growth of human-centered organizations designed to meet the need and desire of human beings. So what are the focal points of the human relation theories? Firstly, we have the study of actual individual behavior at work. Second, it is being multidisciplinary discipline. Third, it requires a rigor in the scientific procedure of research. Fourth, job satisfactions is not only a factor of monetary and promotional rewards, but it is a more function of interpersonal relations in a small face-to-face group of employees in relation with the immediate supervisor. Fifth, democratic participation and decentralized decision-making could enhance satisfaction and generate productivity in the organizations than a bureaucratic, autocratic atmosphere. Sixth, we have this immediate supervisor. In order to efficiency in the organization should be formal, consultative, trusting, and concerned for team members or welfare. Seventh, we have the normative commitment of the individual's opportunity to self-actualization and to equality of person. Eighth, we have the recognition of the importance of individual worker in the organization as a human being with needs and wants. And lastly, we have generalist orientation of the administrator. So in the human relation theories, you also have the existence of the hierarchy of needs, motivational hygiene, and theory of X and Y. So for the hierarchy of needs, the hierarchy of needs of Abraham Maslow is otherwise known as a principle of human motivation needs. This perspective believes that human needs are primary job motivators. There are 5 fundamental human needs that are obliged in the ascending chronological order, according to Abraham Maslow, a psychologist who created the theory in the clinic. Number 2, we have the motivation hygiene theory. Motivation hygiene theory was conceptualized by Frederick Herzberg in 1959. Herzberg concluded that there are 2 factors believed to present in a job. These are the maintenance factors, and the motivational factors. Lastly, we have this theory X and theory Y, wherein it was developed by Douglas M. MacGregor in 1960. The theory X is job-oriented theory of management. Theory Y looked into the 2 sides of man. Task-oriented management is necessary in order to achieve organizational goals. On the other hand, theory Y looks at the other side of human being. It is a type of management that is people-oriented. It sees man as one who likes work inherently. Hence, he has the ability to direct his own behavior towards achieving organizational objectives. So for the last part of module 3, we have the modern organizational theory. The modern organizational theory or administrative theories formulated and conceptualized after the human relations schools of thoughts are categorized in this paper as modern organizational theory. The modern organizational theory are generally influenced by classical bureaucratic theory in the human relations school of thoughts. In other words, it is a mixture of various thoughts derived from earlier organization theories and current findings. These include the following. We have the neo-bureaucratic theory or decision-making theory. We also have this institutional theory, which include the group theory, the power politics perspective, and the culture perspective. We also have the systems and contingency theory. We also have this public choice theory and chaos and complexity theory. And of course, lastly, we have the chaos and complexity theory. So we are now at the module 4, function in areas of public administration. So, in this chapter, in this module, we will be talking about these three major things. We have the traditional subfields of political science. We also have the additional subfields of public administration. And we also have the new fields of public administration. So talking about the traditional subfields of political science, we have this political theory, comparative politics, and public administration to begin with. So, political theory is a study of influential political thinkers, political theories, and an interpretation of them. This states institutions, laws, orders, freedoms, justice, and standards of lives were transformed by political ideals into concrete historical conditions. Plato, Aristotle, Cicero, Augustine, and Aquinas are among the major philosophers and theorists investigated in the field of political science. The comparative politics, on the other hand, in chosen countries and religions around the world, comparative politics is a review of current politics and political patterns. It attempts to describe methods, activities, strategies that could be exportable principles for countries to borrow from each other. Lastly, we also have this public administration, wherein this is much disagreement about whether the study of public administration can properly be called as discipline. It is often viewed as a subfield of two disciplines of political science and administrative science. In Canada, public administration has evolved primarily as a subfield of political science. Public administrators plays an important role by providing policies, advice to elect politicians, and by active involvement in the making, enforcement, and adjudications of laws and regulations. Moving on to the additional subfields of public administration. The discipline of public administration has traditionally had the following subfields. We have the organization and management. We have the administration of public staff and administration of local government. What do we mean by organization and management? One of the oldest subfields of public administration is organization and management. It addresses the ideas, practices, and strategies used in the national government's organization and administration. It also discusses new methods of strategies such as reinventing and re-engineering. Public personal administration, on the other hand, the concept of staff management is discussed here. It examined the evolution of management of public employees, the structures of workforce structures, and the basic features of public sector staff roles. Personal administrations has expanded its scope and grown into the control of human capital or the creation of human resources. Moving on to the public fiscal administration, the public finance belongs to the branch of economics but that was during in the earlier times. With the emergency in the field of public administration, much interest has been directed towards fiscal administration. Through the years, many researchers are devoted in these topics and issues. The government has also introduced reforms like reforms in tasks, administrations, value-added task VAT or the VAT, expanded value-added task or the EVAT, and the procurement reforms. Lastly, we have the local government administration. In studying local government administration, the concept of decentralization are taken into account. Decentralization as a process is one of the widely researched topics. Administrative organization and operations of local government are discussed. Structures and processes of regional administration and likewise discussed. So we have these new subfields. We are now in the last part of Module 4, the new subfields of public administration. This part is divided, of course, into 4 as well. We have the policy, analysis, and program administration, the public enterprise management, voluntary sector management, spatial information management. So talking about the policy analysis and program administration, public policies is a subfield of public administration. In the United States, interest of public studies started in 1950s. In the Philippines, it started in 1970s. So moving on to the public enterprise management, the privatization is one of the foci of this area of public administration. Other topics include the nature and processes of public enterprise and the relation between the government and the public enterprise sector. We also have this voluntary sector management. This area has been established expertise through the years. And so that is for this video. Once again, this is Jofali Jamalol, a BS Public Administration student, and I hope that this video is very much understandable. See ya!